Hey guys, it's Toniko Pantoja, and today I'd like to talk about story beats. So what are story beats in animation and how are they different from storyboards? First, let's talk about storyboards. Storyboards are panels that describe every moment that happens within that sequence, shot by shot, and it's timed to an animatic that represents the whole timing for either the episode or the movie. Now let's talk about story beats. Think of story beats as the cover art for a chapter in a graphic novel. It summarizes the contents of the chapter in one visual image. The cast of characters are full on display, you're given an overall context of the scene and the emotions conveyed within that shot. It's that one juicy splash page that sort of foreshadows and summarizes what will happen in that sequence. Other great examples of story beats are keyframe illustration, illustrated children's books, and comic splash pages like I mentioned. What story beats are essentially, they are panels like storyboards, but they illustrate a key moment or a turning point in your story. When I storyboard for a feature film and when it's early in development, like in the writing stage, the story artist will sometimes be tasked with coming up with story beats for each sequence. It's an early form of putting writing into visuals. So whether you're boarding for a film, for a short, or for a TV show idea, why should you look into story beats or making story beats? Honestly, I think any artist who's willing to communicate a story within their illustrations should actually try doing them. There are good reasons why you should do them. It's visual storytelling, and like I said earlier, it's translating your writing into visual imagery where we can actually see it. Next, it's useful for pitching your story idea, whether it's for TV or whether it's for feature. Like if you're trying to sell an intellectual property, you're showing slides and basic images summarizing the general idea. It'll improve on your storytelling chops and being a successful storyteller with just one or a few images. And the great thing about story is that it's universal. So now you've decided to make story beats, whether it's for your own idea or maybe you're adapting an existing property, maybe it's video games, maybe it's a book, into animation, for example. The thing about drawing and storytelling is that you don't have to be the best draftsman, you don't have to be the best technical artist out there or to be the best illustrator or painter. They can help, but you'd be surprised how many ideas have been sold through just stick figure drawings or engaging stories told with crude drawings. And I think it's important for everyone to improve on their draftsmanship skills and their drawing skills to effectively have clear and better storytelling. Now, when I draw story beats for a project or when I do illustration where I want to showcase storytelling, I usually have three important ingredients that I keep to mind. So again, there's three ingredients that I keep to mind. The first one is context, knowing what is happening in this drawing, what are the circumstances, and why is this happening. This is where we summarize who our characters are, the setting, where is it taking place, maybe when, and the plot point of the image, if it's part of a bigger story. I feel like this ingredient describes who, what, where, why, and how. Next is character, and this is an animator's favorite part. How do the characters emote and interact with each other? How can we be more specific? If the piece has actual characters, this is where we can explore performance choices, acting choices, expressions, and emotions. I firmly do believe that good storytelling is showcasing personality, emotion, and how characters interact with each other. And we want to be able to see this in a drawing. As human beings, we relate to human emotion. And remember, it's character decisions and character emotions that drive the story forward, or the lessons you're trying to tell with the story, but that's a whole other talk. Next is composition, and I think this is where some of that artistic knowledge comes into play. How is everything laid out in the image? How does this affect the overall mood in the illustration? I think about things like color, layout, camera angles, and staging, overall shapes, framing devices. How can I make certain characters look way more intimidating than other characters, and how are they visually represented? How can I make the world feel so big and the characters feel tiny? How do I make a character feel cramped, trapped, and claustrophobic, maybe matching their emotions? With these ingredients, I'm going to show some story beats I did for some key moments for the Croods 2, and my thought process for them. In this story beat, the main Croods family meets the Bettermans. They are close to Guy, who is a part of the Croods family, and have some good history. Even the daughter of the Bettermans is a very close childhood friend of Guy's. In the story beat, I wanted to show the Bettermans appreciating this moment and hoping that the two would go together, whereas the main Croods family are way more cautious and standoffish. Both Guy and Dawn, the Betterman's daughter, they both have sloth fanny packs. And I wanted to hint the B story between these two characters, or these two sloths, like there's something romantic going on between them. Only separated by different families. Even though it's a rough black and white sketch where the drawings are a bit loose and they're not like super tied down, I'm constantly thinking about the point of the story. There's character, there's clarity within the emotions, and there's an overall context. I've done numerous beats for the film. Here's a small one where Guy becomes fully accustomed with the other family, and I show this by making them all wear the same clothes and carry the same pose and attitude throughout, like he's being accustomed and adapting to them. Here's a story beat I did after both fathers and Guy have been abducted by a giant beast. We don't know what that beast is, but we hint it through the set. It's big enough to tear down walls and trees. And when I was doing this beat, I really wanted to show off scale, how small the characters feel compared to the wreckage, and that visual imagery of descending into that darkness in the middle. Here's a beat where Guy and both the dads are being surrounded by the monkey tribe in the monkey lair. They're captives, and I really wanted to show danger. I used red because it's a color that represents danger and alert and just high passion, but I also utilized the spears of the monkeys, all pointing towards our male leads. And I'm really thinking about composition here, how those three characters feel, cramped up together, they're frightened emotions-wise, and in every negative space, all these monkeys are leaning towards them and all the spears are pointing towards them, so it really does create that sign of danger. Here's a beat where one of the characters, Thunk, tries to make peace with the monkey tribe. His overall demeanor is friendly and inviting, and everyone else is more standoffish, especially the monkeys. But I also darkened the human characters, covered in shadow, as if they're hiding behind Thunk, observing, and being cautious at the same time. And I've done story beats that are just meant to be visual gags and imagery, like this one for example, where all the female leads, Thunk, and their giant cat, are surfing on a tiny ice block that's floating on lava. And I wanted to make sure that each character had specific emotions and expressions related to their personality, really thinking about the specificness and what can make the scene more engaging and entertaining. Okay, now I want to show you guys some random beats I did for Dream Bandits and Dusk's Flight, series ideas that I'd like to explore someday, whether it's for a show or whether it's for graphic novels. Since I only have a rough idea of what the story is and don't really have exact moments planned out, the main thing that I can utilize in a story beat are the key moments that happen in the plot, or just moments where the characters are interacting with each other and interacting with the world. Things like, how do these characters interact with each other? How do they feel towards each other? How do they interact with the world around them? This is important to think about when making visual imagery for show pitches, since we're going to be following your main characters of your idea interacting with everything in that idea or world. It's good to have images that show their dynamics towards each other. If you have a story idea that's not really fully figured out beat by beat, it's a good way to sell an idea of why these characters are worth exploring. The beat boards I did for the Dream Bandits pitch, I really wanted to show how the characters ate lunch together or camped together, or how they face danger together, how some are attentive, how some are not, just to really show their personalities with each other. And it can just be little moments like characters eating lunch together or characters just taking a nap together. People seeing these want to learn more about the characters and what's their deal. Here are story beats I did for Crayon Dragon. Usually for short films, I nail it down to 4 to 6 story beats. It usually starts with the setup of our main character, and I'm gonna go at beat by beat. I establish the character about to replace the mural of, the art that she's going to paint over. The next beat, I just jumped straight into this whole whimsical, magical painted world already being introduced to the dragon. I didn't really make a beat of how she got into the painting or whatnot. I don't think that's super important compared to her meeting another character, emotions-wise. The next beat, I really wanted to showcase how their interaction would be and what they would do together. And in the next beat, we learn more about the tragic story of Crayon Dragon. And the next beat, I really wanted to show that this is, sort of an acceptance for this character and leaving a choice to be made by the girl character. And the last beat I have is the girl character fixing the mural. So for these beats, I didn't really talk about how point A goes to point B. It's more like, what is the emotional change for these characters? It's probably a good way to try and find very simple beats. Before I even storyboarded my canceled short film, I made a lot of story beats. I had a clear idea of how I wanted the story to play out, so I made way too many story beats than what I hoped for. And one thing I have to let you guys know is that I did these beats without writing the story. It was all just felt through me drawing each beat, which I probably don't recommend. I recommend writing it out first so you can figure out what's important and what's not. I'm always an advocate of keeping things simple and the count small, especially when it comes to storyboarding or story beats. I'm a firm believer of economic but effective. As for how many beats should you have for a feature film or for a short film, I don't think there's a real number. For some shows, some have 4 to 8 per episode, whereas features can have 8 to 12 beats, maybe even going beyond depending on the film. It also depends on your idea if it follows a certain story structure. For example, let's say you're writing a story and it's based off the hero's journey story structure. There's 12 stages within the hero's journey story structure. You could have each story beat representing each stage from that structure if your idea or beat follows that one. Honestly, if you're following a story structure, whether it's from rags to riches or the hero's journey or whatnot, you can just use that as a template for the allocated story beats. So, in conclusion, I think story beats are great because not only do they help you improve on your storytelling chops, but it helps you establish milestones or general moments within your story or idea. They don't have to be fully figured out, but the story beat represents a feeling that's there. And then you can work with that to make things more specific, especially when you're trying to board out actual sequences. So if you're trying to pitch to studios, I would highly recommend looking into story beats rather than storyboards. Maybe some places will ask for storyboards or for you to pitch a sequence, but I think story beats are quite universal and they summarize the general tone and just effectively summarize the story that you're going for. Anyways, that's all. Bye. Interested in learning hand-drawn animation or learning how to finish an animated shot from beginning to end? Have a look at the store where you'll find the complete Introduction to 2D Animation video course, tutorials, and other resources. Learn classical animation approaches, drawing, lectures, techniques, and other process videos. Visit the store through the link in the description below.